Welcome to the Infuse Compassion Podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world. Welcome back, Compassionators, to another episode of the Infuse Compassion Podcast. We just had a really dynamic and kind of mind growing. I was going to say mind exploding, but I'm going to say mind growing conversation.
I was thinking mind expanding was
mind
the word
expanding. There you go. Mind expanding conversation with Dr. Shawnte Elbert. If you haven't already listened to that episode, please go back and listen to it. It's absolutely fantastic. And you know what? You may even want to consider listening to it a couple of times because there are layers of wisdom in that. But I want to ask my good buddy, Mark, come on. Like, what do you want to talk about?
Well, there's so much for me because her thought processes are so much aligned with mine and so much aligns with my book, Lead Like a Person, Not Like a Position, because that's all about bringing yourself, your whole self into leadership and seeing your people, not just as pieces in the corporate cog, but seeing people as people. She brought up one of the elements that I emphasize a lot in my book and in my work, which is just the simple act of showing people appreciation in the way that they want to be appreciated. Because I think that's important. Sometimes we say, well, yes, I express appreciation to my people all the time. Or maybe I give them these little gift cards all the time. Well, is that what they want? I remember there was an experience of a leader who gave little gift cards to a local coffee shop to people on his team every time he saw him do something good. And he thought he was doing so great at expressing appreciation to him. One day he stopped by one of his great team members' offices and she had a stack of these gift cards sitting on her desk. And he said, well, why aren't you ever using these? These are for you. And she goes, yeah, I've been to that shop. There's nothing there I really like. He thought he was doing this great act of appreciation and she wasn't feeling appreciated by it because it's like, yeah, that's nice symbolically, but that just doesn't do anything for me. So knowing your people and knowing what they value allows you to show some simple acts of appreciation that will get the best out of your team. They will be more committed. And that was another thing that Shawnte brought up, was that when people feel valued, when they feel seen, heard, and appreciated. Those were the three words she used: seen, heard, and appreciated. People will give you their best. And so there's great value in treating people with compassion as a leader. How about you, Amy? What was jumped out to you?
I believe in addition to appreciated, she may have said affirmed. Seen, heard, and affirmed. Wow. You know, it was really powerful when she talked about fear, right? At the very beginning, she just starts out with, fear of making a mistake. And then went into, showing up without fear is a privilege. And we have to read the room. Sometimes it's not safe for us to come forward and bring forward and share what we want to, what we're being moved to. But I also like that she went to, but if you're in the room, like, trust your intuition. Read the room, but trust your intuition, right? And I loved how she said, as my granny used to say, read the room. And that's so much of it. Her curiosity and how she shows up for her team, to me, I don't want to minimize the artistry of how she shows up as a leader, but I also want to put a magnifying glass on the simplicity of her primary tool, which is curiosity.
Yeah.
She doesn't overthink it, but she intentionally architects it based on each person's need. What she sees, their needs, what she sees to be seen, heard, and affirmed, right? So powerful.
Yeah. And that there's that balance when you're reading the room of recognizing that, yeah, there may be some challenges there in the room, but also recognizing you belong there. You're in that room for a reason. And I see people almost take the oh, it may not be safe for me to bring this up, so I'm just not going to say anything. That's more comfortable for me. But that's more about their own comfort than reading the room. It's more about, it's more comfortable for me to just sit back and say nothing. But you're there for a reason. And so if you say it with the intent of wanting to make things better, of wanting to help. In fact, she talked about you can hold people accountable when they know you care enough.
Mm-hmm.
If they know that you're coming from a place of care and a place of compassion, then you can hold people accountable effectively because they know that you've got their best interests at heart.
Mm-hmm.
She shared an example, and I've got other examples of it as well, where the hard conversation becomes, this may not be a good fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
This role may not be a good fit for your career, for where you're going. And so let's find you a different role or find you a different position within the company or someplace else. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's hard for people to hear. But when it's done from a place of compassion, very often they come back and say, wow, you were right. I was
Mm-hmm.
stuck there because it wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
We get hesitant in leadership positions to say, oh, I got to tell this person they're not doing well, or maybe I got to put them on a performance plan. Well, but you're not being compassionate if you're not having that conversation with them because you're not helping them improve. You're not
Right.
helping them get better.
There's been a number of conversations, both as a performance management coach and also as a recruiter years ago, where people are showing you in how they're showing up. They're showing you in how they're responding to the questions. They're applying for a position in an interview, and they're showing you that they're not a fit. As a recruiter, I would stop after I'd heard enough things where I could hear them stretching. Well, it's an hour and a half commute, but you know what? I can do it. I can do it. It's a hero's promise. You hear enough of these and you've got to stop. It's your responsibility as a recruiter to stop and say, you know what? Let's just take a moment and kind of reflect on what we've talked about so far. Now, I want you to think for a minute about 5 days a week driving an hour. Now, this was 20 years ago. Okay. So the whole remoting in was not an option, right? How are you going to feel driving an hour and a half each way? I want you to think about the cost of gas. I want you to think about the time that you're away from your family, your friends. I want you to think about that. By the end of this conversation of me helping them think through these things that I could see them stretching themselves to a yes, they would self deselect out of the role.
Yeah.
And it's just helping them uncover what's there by asking questions. And it's the same thing if you've got somebody that's in a role where they're struggling. The example that she shared of this gentleman was so powerful. It was recorded. Uh, If you can't recall the story, go back and listen to it because I'm not going to do it justice. But here's what's so beautiful about that is at the end of that conversation, I was so clear that when Dr. Shawnte said yes to being a leader, she said yes to being committed and really invested in her team members' success, even when that required her to get uncomfortable in helping someone see what their opportunities were.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that?
Yeah. And I'm going to tie this back to something you said a little bit earlier, Amy, about curiosity, because that curiosity actually can make you more comfortable in those situations.
Hmm.
She made the comment that a lot of times leaders don't lead with compassion because of fear. They're afraid that they're going to look bad because of the performance of other people, or maybe they're going to fear that their leadership is going to be questioned. I had a situation. I was teaching a college class, and I had my top student in this class bombed on an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
He just, as I was grading the assignment, I was like, oh, he misinterpreted the purpose. He misinterpreted the direction on this. He misinterpreted the relationship that we're looking at with this client that he was supposed to be writing about. And so he didn't get a very good grade. And I had a feeling that he was going to have a problem with it. So as I handed the assignments back out, I kind of, out of the corner of my eye, was watching him look through each page, and I could see on his face his concern. So I wasn't surprised when at the end of the class, he came right up to me. And he said, I got to talk to you about this assignment. I don't think that this is a fair grade. And I was ready for it. And I said, okay, tell me why. And he was giving me point for point reasons. Well, I had point for point reasons as to why the grade was fair and why I took those points away. Well, but this, and then he'd argue another point, and I'd tell him why. And he'd argue another point, and I'd tell him why. And finally, I just stopped and I said, what's your real concern here?
Hmm.
What are you really worried about? And he paused for a second. And he said, I have to get an A in this class in order to keep my scholarship. It had nothing to do with the points by points on that assignment. Yeah. And so I was able to say to him, his name's David. I said, David, you're still getting an A. And he goes, but this assignment, I lost so many points. I said, you were so far up in your points, you're still getting an A. Mm-hmm. He goes, really, am I? I said, yes, I promise you. You are still at this point getting an A. You do well on the rest of your assignments, you're going to have an A in this class.
Yeah.
He closed up the assignment and he said, okay, thanks. I'll see you next week. All of his objections just faded away because I finally paused enough to get curious around, why are you reacting this way?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard for you to accept this feedback? Mm-hmm. But if we're just a little more curious and get to what's behind the concern, a lot of times we'll find out something that we weren't aware of in the first place.
So beautiful. I mean, listen, curiosity. Wow. I mean, huge. And this, I want to take us to, we actually decided, you and I, Mark, that we were going to name the last episode, Dr. Shawnte's episode, this: compassion is a verb. Come on. Compassion is a verb, right? She says it in the middle of the episode. She comes out so strong. Compassion is a verb. And I knew at that moment, this is what we have to call this episode. And so much of how she showed up, so much of what she shared was illustrating that. And I really want to underline that, in the beginning of her share, this is not what she received. This is not the leadership that she experienced. And I know that there are a lot of people that are like, I've never had that. I've never experienced that. Okay, but there's an opportunity for it to be developed, for it to be nurtured, for it to grow, right? We can make intentional actions. There was and I want us to look for it and include it in the links. You already mentioned it, the appreciation the people who wrote the love language book also wrote an appreciation book and have a questionnaire. We're going to include the link to that in our show notes because I want everybody to have the opportunity to go in and see, wait a second. I want my team to take this appreciation survey so that I can understand how I can appropriately appreciate them. See, the thing is that when we know, it's so much easier for us to go forward,
Yep.
right? When we just know. So we're going to make it easy for you, folks. We're going to make it easy.
Well, and I think of that in terms of the love languages. I, I think of it in terms of language. It's so funny when I see this happen. You get somebody who maybe doesn't speak English very well, and they're trying to get service from somebody at a store or something. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
does the person at the store do? They speak their language louder.
Yeah.
That's not helpful for somebody who speaks a different language.
Mm-mm.
And so I think the same thing is true with appreciation. If we have a language of appreciation, we think that everybody else has that language too, that we have that common language.
That's
And
right.
so we'll speak it as loud as we can, but if that's not their language, it doesn't land.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as helpful. And so just taking the time to open up to that. One of the great tips that I heard about that too is just be observant.
Mm.
Listen to what people talk about.
Yeah.
Look around at the artifacts in their work area. What do they have in front of them that shows you this is what's important to them? This is what
Mm.
they care about. This is what they value. And then you can customize the way that you show appreciation to what's in their world and what they actually care about.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up because she even talked about go into the work area, pay attention to the energy in the room. I don't think this is done enough where people are like feeling like just looking, hearing, listening, like you said, observing. It matters. Feel how people are. I mean, even when you ask somebody a question, are they guarded in their response? That is very telling. How comfortable is somebody in just engaging with you? Are you seeing a trend? Maybe there's an opportunity for you to, soften a little bit, change your leadership style. It's really investing. I've got it written here. I'm looking down at my notes, but investing into the team. And how are you? So I just want every leader out there, like to write this down. How am I investing in my team? And if you're not, that's okay. But you have an opportunity to change right now, today.
And I think that investment is less of a financial investment. I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I need to get gifts from my team. No, that's not what we're talking about.
That's
We're talking
not.
about investing time and focus and energy and care and compassion
Yeah.
on your team. I also had the thought as you were saying that, Amy, that we sometimes fail to recognize that people bring baggage from previous work environments.
Mm.
Maybe you have a work environment where there is a lot of compassionate leadership, and you're like, well, why aren't people speaking up when there's a problem? Because I want to hear I've encouraged people to do this. But maybe in their previous job,
Yeah.
they got criticized for that,
Mhm.
or that was discouraged. And so kind of recognize that people are carrying with them what they've experienced in the past. It may not be about you and your leadership. It may be about previous leadership that they've had before. And that goes back to getting curious. Talk to people, find out what's going on with them. See why they're hesitant. Ask the questions.
Mhm.
Ask them about what their previous work environment was like.
Yeah.
Ask what was good for them in that environment. Ask what they struggled with in that environment. You're probably going to get some good information that will help you understand what their behaviors are and help them make the shift to the environment that you're trying to instill in your team.
I absolutely love that, Mark. And I'm going to expand it to say, and maybe everything at work environments have been great, but their personal life. Maybe there's something from their childhood, something at home that they're dealing with right now. We don't know what any person has gone through. We really don't. We don't know their story. But how we show up can make them feel safer in this moment to show up as their best. And she talked about, you know, how our intent is a bridge to the impact, right? And so when we're showing up with the intention of inspiring, okay, she just broke it down so simply and so beautifully that if you stop focusing on the metrics and start focusing on how you're supporting your team, the metrics will come. But
Yeah.
you've got to get the dynamic with the team right first,
Yeah.
each individual employee.
Yeah. So some of the research that I did for Lead Like a Person, Not Like a Position actually bears that out.
Oh,
That you are going to get the best out of people when they feel comfortable in the work environment.
yeah.
And we get focused on metrics on, okay, have you gotten this done? Have you gotten this done? But if you get those metrics through leading like a position, pounding on people, you might get the metrics short term, but you're probably going to get just the metrics. You're going to get just to it. Whereas if you build a team who wants to be there, who wants to give their very best, you don't have to worry so much about those metrics because people are going to try to beat those metrics because they care enough.
That's right.
They want to be there. You show caring for them, they will give you not just their time, they'll give you their heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is, this is really the essence of infusing compassion, right? I mean, this is the essence of it, is there's little things that we can do to just make people, I keep on going back to what she said, seen, heard, and affirmed. It's so powerful. The other piece, ants, what her sister, the therapist, said, automatic negative thoughts. Can we talk about that for a minute, Mark? Because this is huge. And she said, even if you're just thinking it and you're not even saying it out loud, your body, your heart, your head is still receiving that. And to flip the script on that, be proud of, okay, you made a mistake, but you showed up, you did it. You did it. Can we not focus on that you made a mistake, and can we instead celebrate that you did it? Right? Because that's powerful. Automatic negative thoughts. Ants. And I literally pictured how people are like, oh my God, ants are crawling all over the place. I'm next time going to have this visual of ants. And you know what? Yeah, we don't need the ants crawling all over us.
Yeah, especially crawling over our brains. Because
Yeah.
that's what those ants are doing. They're crawling all over in our brains and setting our mindset. That goes back to what Shawnte was saying about fear. A lot of times those automatic negative thoughts feed those fears.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're in a mindset of perfectionism. And when we get into leadership positions, and I remember this, I fell into this trap myself. I was like, I'm the leader. I have to be right, or I'm going to look bad. And I have to have everything go perfectly. Well, then if somebody on your team makes a mistake, you feel like that starts to reflect on you personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to be less compassionate in the way that you react to that person. But if it's more about, okay, how can we take progressive steps to get better and better, then it's a lot more compassionate. I think sometimes we drift away from that compassion because of how the leaders above us are treating us too. And you brought this out in the conversation. We're not all in organizations where leaders demonstrate compassionate leadership. Mm-hmm. That is challenging for somebody to step into a more compassionate leadership mentality when you're not getting it from the leaders who are above you. And sometimes they even will push you to be less compassionate with your team members. But you can always make a choice. I love how she talked about grounding yourself in will this make a difference if
Mm-hmm.
I'm more compassionate? And realizing that it will, and use that as your anchor to say, even if I'm getting pushed to go a different direction, I can do this because I believe it's going to make a positive difference. I believe I'm going to get the best out of my team. And I believe I'm going to create an environment where people want to be here
Mm-hmm.
more if I will do that.
Well, and I've worked at organizations where leaders have like sought out other leaders that are, let's say there's a reputation that compassion isn't one of their strengths. You can see it in the attrition numbers. It's talked about. Everybody, it's literally the elephant in the room. XYZ leader really struggles to lead their team. And I've seen beautiful, incredible, brave leaders step out and one on one go and have compassionate conversations, not with an iron fist, but instead with a, hey, I don't know what the conversation was, but here's what I saw. I know it happened because over time I saw the leader's behavior change. And it was absolutely beautiful. And I've seen organizations literally transform because brave leaders have stepped up and had the conversations with their colleagues. A lot of times, nobody else can do it but your colleagues, right? To come in and say, hey, listen, we're leaders here. We have a responsibility to do this better, to do this differently. Let's talk about what that might look like.
Yeah. And it is a brave conversation. Just this week, I had somebody share with me a conversation that she had with her leader. So this
Mm,
is the person she reports to, because she had seen him getting into a habit of cutting people off before they'd finished explaining their points.
mm,
And she came at it from a very compassionate angle, because she said, I think he's just thinking so fast and he's so experienced that he's thinking ahead and is jumping to the conclusion.
mhm,
And he's not wrong most of the time, but people feel like he's cutting them off and they feel like they just don't want to share anymore.
mhm.
She had that conversation with him to say, I don't think you've noticed this,
Right.
but this is what's happening and this is the impact it's having on the team. Now, to this leader's credit, he said, you're right. I haven't noticed it. I haven't noticed that I do that. And that's not the kind of leader that I want to be. And she
Yeah.
said, after that conversation over the next couple of weeks, there were several times when somebody was explaining something in a meeting and this leader would jump in the middle and then he'd stop himself and he'd go, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I should let you finish. Please go on. And just that little shift, that one conversation
Yeah.
makes that little shift, and think about the impact on everybody on that team with that, because of that one conversation, that one brave conversation that was held.
Yeah. And so I love that story, Mark. And let's go back to Dr. Shawnte's word. Your intention is the bridge to the impact. That employee's intention was, I want you to be the best leader you can be. So I'm going to manage up. Sometimes we have to, right? I'm going to manage up and I'm going to share some information, but I'm going to do it in a gentle, compassionate way. Clear, right?
Yeah.
Very clear. But how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Transformational, right?
And
Mm,
clarity is compassionate.
absolutely.
It's not compassionate to be vague with somebody about what's going on. I'll even go back to the word intention there. Her intention was not just, I want you to be the best leader. Her intention was, I want our team to be the best team.
Yeah.
And if people aren't sharing their full ideas,
Hmm.
we may not be getting the best out of our team. So it was even beyond just him as a leader. It
Hmm.
was the whole team.
Wow.
It doesn't matter whether she had a leadership role or not. That's compassionate leadership. So
Absolutely.
leadership is not based on title. It's based on behavior.
That's right. That's right. So as we wrap up, Mark, any last words that you want to share?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is first, go follow Dr. Shawnte Elbert. Follow the work that she's doing, because I just feel like she's doing some tremendous work out there that needs to be heard in the world. Mm-hmm. And the other point that I would say is just be intentional, be curious. Be curious about your people, and be intentional about your leadership, and your leadership of people, not just leadership of processes or positions, but your leadership of people, and you'll be a more compassionate leader.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. I'm going to leave with double underlining her last words, her tip: acknowledge your efforts publicly. And the reason why I want to spotlight that is because I remember when she said it, I mouthed the words publicly, because that's uncomfortable. Like I've noticed that I really struggle to even receive on social media. Like I love putting stuff out there, but when somebody spotlights me on social media, I have a very difficult time responding. And I'm like, oh, Amy, you need to like, you need to work on receiving this, right? So acknowledge your efforts publicly, right? And I love that, to be able to say, yes, I did this. Yes, I did that. And I'm going to challenge everybody. I'm going to give you a specific challenge. The next time you receive recognition from somebody, I want you to ask them to send it in an email and to copy your manager. And if they don't copy your manager, or if they don't send the email, I want you to at least send an email to your manager and say, I want to share some feedback with you, some positive feedback that I received from XYZ. Your manager will not know about that if you don't get it in front of them. And then put it in your performance management file, whatever tool you guys are using. Make sure you put that little note in there so that you can remind yourself at performance evaluation time or your next check-in. All right.
Mark, I would just add that your manager actually does want to see that too.
Yeah.
Your manager wants to know those things that have happened. It may feel like you're trying to brag, but your manager's not going to see it that way. Your manager's going to see it as, this is a member of my team. Their success is our success.
That's right.
And they want to be able to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to tell them about the conference, Mark?
Yeah. Let's wrap up with just a reminder of the Infuse Compassion into Companies Conference, ICIC. Register for it now. We've got our lineup of speakers that is going to knock your socks off. They are just a fabulous group of people, but also a fabulous group of topics that I think will really strengthen your leadership. It ties perfectly to the topic we're talking about today, and strengthen your personal capabilities at work. The conference is a virtual conference on November 14th. You can register at infusecompassion.com. Get out there, join us. It'll be well worth the time. Hope to see you there.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.